This is a story called Keeping Up Appearances. The year was 1971. I pretend like it didn't bug me, but it did. The fact of the matter was, I was losing my hair. And it was the wrong era to be losing your hair. It was a very hairy time. And I tried to keep my cool. And I tried to be suave and dignified and through it all. But at one point, we were coming home, all our buddies were coming home from a musical that was put on by the University of Colorado Theater called Hair. And all the way home from the show, I heard, "Give me a head of hair, long, beautiful hair, streaming, screaming, streams, waxing, waxing. Oh, give me it down to there, hair, shoulder length, longer, hair, here, baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy, hair." And I, come on, don't. And guys were picking at me and pointing at my receding hairline, and I became very, very self-conscious. And every time it seemed like I was on a date, I just couldn't be myself. I would be trying to say something, and I noticed my companion's eyes start to climb up into my forehead, and I thought, oh, you think I'm an old man, don't you? And I just started to get nervous, and I couldn't laugh, and I couldn't joke around. And I decided I would take matters into my own hands. Not that era, not while I was an undergrad, but when I went to the University of Northwestern in the Chicago area, I was going to buy a toupee to keep up my appearance. And it was a very hairy toupee. It came well over my shoulders, and it blended into my normal hair. It had little tiny clips that clipped onto my normal hair, and everything was pretty good. There was a few setbacks. For example, I was at the Windy City, so if the wind happened to come off the Lake Michigan, it might catch the whole apparatus and lift it ever so slightly, and everybody could tell I was wearing a hairpiece. To counteract that, I bought a fedora, and I wore a hat, and I pretended to keep my hat on in the wind when actually I'm holding on to the whole apparatus. So I'm at Northwestern, and my friend Ralph says, "That's a cool hat." And I said, "Thanks." And we met a cute co-ed named Anne, and she was very lively and very fun. And I, at a private moment, I said, "Ralph, I'm going to ask Anne out." And he said, "I don't think you want to do that." And I said, "Oh, yes, I do." And he said, "Well, she's betrothed to a graduate student down at St. Louis University." And I said, "Oh, he's a med student. Oh, at George Washington. Oh, he's that heroic, huh?" No, George Washington University." I said, "Oh, okay, I see. Okay, well, it was actually a blessing, because the three of us could go just pal around and joke and have fun. And even though my heart was pining away for Anne, we just had a lot of fun together. Then one day, the doctor came up from St. Louis, and we went out with him, and he turned out to be really dull and really staid and very unappealing. And Ralph and I both looked at each other and said, "This isn't right for Anne. This isn't appropriate." But we didn't say anything. We went on our way. So, as fate would have it, the three of us had planned to go to a movie that was popular at the time called Love Story. And Ralph came down with a sickness, and so it was just Anne and I that were scheduled to go to this movie. And I took her to a hangout where we got some brats and a beer, a pitcher of beer. And we were joking around, and everything was fun, and we were laughing, and I could just be myself. And she asked me, how do you and Ralph just joke around so much? How do you find so much fun in everything? And I said, "Look, we're in a tough time. We're in a time when We have a war going on. We have the Watergate hearings. We have poverty. We have racial discrimination. You can look at the world. Voltaire said you could look at the world and either laugh or cry. And I choose to laugh. And Anne was looking at me. Her eyes were locked on mine. And I could have melted. I had to look away because I didn't want to give away how I felt about her. But then we went on to the movie. And we were still joking and so forth on the way to the movie. And when we got to the movie, the Ryan character looked over at Ally McGraw and gave some joke. And I poked Anne on the armrest, and I leaned over into her and I said, "That's about a 5 on our 10-point scale." And she leaned back to me and she said, "I think it's a 6. And from then on, we were kind of doing that, leaning into each other, rating the different jokes that were going on during the movie. And so then at one point during the show, I was making a point and I reached out my arm and she put her hand right on top of mine. And we intertwined our fingers. And I thought, is this really happening? And so I hardly paid any attention to the movie after that. And we kept holding hands. We played with our hands all the way home. And she said, "Do you want to come to my apartment?" And I said, "Sure, that's great." And we're holding hands and we're walking. She was walking on the pavement and I was walking about 3 feet above the pavement. And I was lucky. I was holding on to her because I would have floated right on up to the moon. I can't believe this was going to happen to me. This is great. We make it to her apartment. She goes about making some tea and so forth and brings in the tea into the bedroom, or not the bedroom yet, but the couch, and sets the tea down. And I'm leaning against the couch and she comes down and sits right next to me and closes her eyes, lifts her head, and I cover her face with little kisses and cover her lips and eyebrows and eyelashes and everything. And she reaches around, she frees her hand up to put her hand through my hair. And I stop it because it would hurt to tear the little clips. And I didn't know what to say, and I looked at her, and awkwardness just flooded all over me. And I had to say that, yes, I was wearing a hairpiece. And she came to her senses and said, she's a fiancé, and she's betrothed to marry this guy from St. Louis, and everything fell apart. And I had to go home and took off my hairpiece and put it on the stand and looked at it and thought, it's too much trouble keeping up appearances.